Developed and published by Ninja Theory and originally released for the PC and PS4 in August of 2017, the Xbox One in April of 2018, and then the Nintendo Switch in April of 2019, Hellblade tells the story of Senua, who travels the Norse mythology version of Hell, called Helheim, to rescue the soul of her dead lover from the goddess Hela. The game's narrative serves as a metaphor for the character's struggle with psychosis, as Senua, who suffers from psychosis, but the people around her make her believe her condition to be a curse. Does Hellblade capture the feeling of someone suffering from a mental illness while translating it to a game mechanic and making the game fun at the same time? Or is the mental illness no more than a gimmick of bad game design and lazy gameplay? Let's hit play and find out. How you doing, fellow geeks? GamerDad79 here, and today we are going to be taking a look at Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice on Xbox Games Pass. I'll say it before and I'll say it again. I love Xbox Games Pass, best deal in gaming. If you don't believe me at this point, there's something wrong with you. If you have an Xbox and you don't have Games Pass, you are completely missing out on probably what is the best reason to have an Xbox right now, and that's Xbox Games Pass. I've had my eye on Hellblade for quite some time now. Just like most of the things I have my eye on, I just wasn't able to get around to playing it. But thanks to Xbox Games Pass, I was able to finally get an opportunity to play this game, and I am sure glad I did. The premise behind the game had me really, really intrigued, and I was really looking forward to getting into it. I remember being on deployment about a year ago. You know, if you're not familiar with me, I am in the military, and I got back from my last deployment about a year ago. And while I was on deployment, there was somebody playing this game. They had a gaming laptop on the cruise mess. The cruise mess is where everyone hangs out and where they eat the meals and all that other stuff. I'm on a submarine. And this guy was playing it on his gaming laptop, and I was like so drawn into what this was happening on this guy's screen. I had to forcefully pull myself away because I didn't want to be spoiled. Cause like, man, I want to play that when I get back home. I wanted to originally get it from my Nintendo Switch because I just love my Switch. I had to forcibly tear myself away so I wasn't spoiled too much for what was going on in the game. A word of warning, will be divulging a little bit into spoiler territory here, but I will try to make sure I don't divulge too much. And I'll try to keep it down to an absolute minimum. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell icon so you know when I upload new videos. We all know the YouTube algorithm's not very, it doesn't really go for small YouTubers all that much, the non-corporate YouTube channels all that much. So I need your help to get my channel out there. So without further ado, let's dive into Helheim in the world of Hellblade. In Hellblade, you play as Senua, who is traveling to Helheim, which is hell, to rescue the soul of her lover Dillion from the goddess Hela. You learn as the game goes on that Senua is suffering from a mental illness, but seeing as no one knew of such things during the time period the game takes place in, Senua believes she is cursed by something she calls the darkness. Senua leaves home to try and combat the darkness growing stronger within her, but when she returns, she finds her lover killed at the hands of the invading Nords. You know, Hellblade is actually a very small game. It was developed by a very small team. I can't remember how many people were on the original team for Hellblade, but it was a very, very small team. I remember reading interviews about this game, and they kind of placed it between, indie games and AAA, right? It wasn't exactly indie and it wasn't exactly AAA. It kind of occupied a middle pace right there, but for the fact that it is such a small developed game with a small developer team, the game looks amazing. Really, it looks absolutely stunning and beautiful. And there is pop up and stuff like that. I mean, it's going to happen, right? This isn't a AAA game. They didn't have millions and millions of dollars to throw at this game. This was a passion project for these guys, and you can tell it was a passion project because the game just looks amazing, and the sound is amazing. Everything is really, really great about this game. And it definitely, I would like to see more games occupy that middle ground between indie and AAA, because it's definitely an untapped area in game development right now. Not a lot of people are going that route. The game can get really dark at times. I'm not talking about visually dark. I'm talking about the subject matter can get very dark and very disturbing. So if some of that type of stuff kind of, may not, I hate the word triggers, but if it upsets you in certain ways, maybe you might want to stay away from this type of game. I would look into it a little bit more to figure out if it's definitely the type of game you want to play, because it definitely got some disturbing stuff to it. It's definitely got some really dark themes that are explored throughout this game. There's abusive family, being alone in this world, suffering silently. There's a lot of different things that are touched on in this game that you might not appreciate being represented in video games, right? So make sure you know what you're getting into. Gameplay revolves around two parts. The first and most prevalent is Senua exploring the area and solving puzzles. Her main goal is to make it into Helheim, but to get there, she has to overcome several obstacles before she can finally save Dillian's soul. I liked how each area revolves around the abilities of the different gods she must face in her quest. The puzzles are all different and unique, but they all revolve around finding different ruins hidden in the environment. These ruins allow you to advance in the level in your quest. The game's not open world, but there are secrets to discover in the environment in the forms of totems hidden throughout the world. When Senua focuses on these totems, it triggers a voiceover by Senua's friend and mentor Druth telling the backstory of the Norsemen. The second part of gameplay revolves around combating the different beings in this world that block her passage to Helheim. Combat revolves around mainly watching your opponent's moves, dodging or blocking at the right moment, and then unleashing your own devastating attacks. Combat can be brutal and unforgiving if you're not careful, and button mashing is a surefire way to get killed. As the game goes on, because of the mental illness that Senua is suffering from, you start questioning whether or not she's actually facing these monsters, these beings, or is this all in her head? Is she really in Helheim? Is it all taking place in her mind? When you die, there is this rot that creeps up your arm as it gets closer and closer to your head. And I don't know exactly what happens when it reaches your head. I never got to that point. But I would assume you are truly dead and the game ends. Senua has a rage inside of her that can match Kratos, right, from the God of War series. Now, the difference between them two is obviously Senua's human. She's 100% human, and she's facing off against these creatures that she has no being or no right facing off against. These creatures are otherworldly, right? They should easily be able to take her apart, and they can if you're not careful, right? Like I said, combat is very precise, and timing has to be pretty on point. It's not as unforgiving as, say, Dark Souls, right? Because I hate Dark Souls, right? Don't get me started on Dark Souls and how much I dislike Dark Souls, but I really enjoyed Hellblade. I enjoyed the combat in Hellblade. I enjoyed every aspect of Hellblade. But she can match Kratos's rage. She is angry. She is pissed off because of the situation she's in. She's pissed off at herself. She's angry with herself. She's angry with the Norsemen. She's angry with these gods for taking her lover away from her when all she was trying to do was get the darkness within her under control. And she never understood what she did wrong by loving this man. Like I said earlier, there's some dark themes that are explored in this game, and it's truly amazing. The game takes mental illness and turns it into a game mechanic to great effect. That's not to say they take the subject matter lightly, as you see Senua struggles with simple everyday tasks, not knowing what is real and what is not. Senua sees things that are not there and hears voices that question her every move. Ninja Theory met with experts in the mental health field to ensure they portrayed this illness in a respectful and meaningful way. They wanted to bring exposure to the struggles that people with mental illness must face every day of their lives and the misconceptions that people have about mental illness. You know, I don't know much about psychosis and mental illness, right? I'm not an expert on the subject. I don't study it in any way, shape, or form. But I do like games that play with the sanity of the player and the protagonist. Some of my favorite games have done this, right? In Metal Gear really did this really well during the Psycho Mantis battle. And of course, one of my favorite games on the GameCube of all time, Eternal Darkness, really did this really well. It really messed with your head. And in Hellblade, what's going on really messes with Senua. There's a lot of little visual tricks and stuff that they do in the game to really get across the fact that Senua is struggling with this mental illness. But of course, she doesn't think it's a mental illness. She thinks she's cursed. And that's kind of it kind of shows what could be happening in today's society. Obviously, we don't think people with mental illnesses are cursed. We just maybe don't understand that, and we can't. And some people maybe are frustrated when they deal with people who have these illnesses because they don't understand it. And I think Hellblade really brings some exposure to that fact and really shows the struggles of what these people who are dealing with these situations could possibly be going through, and how we as a society need to kind of be there for them and be as understanding as we can be. It's really, really interesting the way the game is presented and how it messes with the sanity of Senua and how the game portrays that on screen. It's really very interesting. Final thoughts. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a game that dared to do something different. It wanted to bring exposure to a big issue facing our country and the entire world in mental illnesses. It did this by not exploiting the issue of mental illness, but by exploring some of the more nuanced problems facing everyday people who have these issues. It asks us not to judge, but to be understanding of someone who is going through an issue that some of us couldn't even fathom dealing with on a daily basis. Not only did it explore these issues, but the game itself was an intense experience that was exciting to play and made you want to keep playing to find out what happened next. The story was a big part of what made this game enjoyable for me. Developer Ninja Theory used motion capture and even some live-action actors to capture this dark fantasy world to great success. The voice acting was some of the best I've heard and captured the pain and suffering these men and women were going through. I, for one, am so glad that I played this game, and when Hellblade 2 hits on the next Xbox, the Xbox Series X, I will be one of the first people in line to pick it up. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. Let me know in the comment section below if you have ever played Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice and what you have thought of it. If you enjoyed today's video, please give me that thumbs up. The thumbs ups always help. And if you are a fan of this channel and the content, please share to help GamerDad79 grow. If you want more GamerDad79 content, be sure to check me out on both Facebook and Twitter. I'll leave the links to those in the description box below. And be sure to check out the videos that are coming up on your screen somewhere around here. So that is it for today's video, fellow geeks. I am GamerDad79. Keep on geeking on.